In the U.S., a draft bill that may lead to the closure of Hong Kong economic and trade offices in America. And locally, proposed legislation to prevent stalled payments to workers in the construction industry. Premier Li Qiang and Russian President Vladimir Putin took part in a virtual Group of 20 Summit meeting on Wednesday, chaired by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With the Gaza conflict largely shifting attention away from Russia and Ukraine, Putin called on summit attendees to think about how to stop the tragedy of the 21-month-old war. Addressing G20 leaders for the first time since the start of the war, he said military actions are always a tragedy, pointing to the destruction in Gaza. The United States was represented by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. The Chinese premier, meanwhile, urged members to give priority to development cooperation and oppose the politicization of such issues. Li Qiang added China is ready to work with all parties to uphold the original aspirations of the group. With India chairing the G20 for 2023, Modi said it was important that humanitarian aid reaches the people of Gaza in a timely manner. A vehicle speeding towards the bridge linking New York State and Ontario in Niagara Falls crashed and exploded at a checkpoint on Wednesday. It killed 2 people in the vehicle and prompted the closing of multiple border crossings for hours. Authorities are investigating what spurred the wreck, but say there are no signs it was a terror attack. More from NBC News.
Tonight, the FBI is investigating a fiery crash at the U.S.-Canada border.
I've never seen anything like this. The car just exploded.
Officials in both countries now on high alert.
Mr. Speaker, this is obviously a very serious situation in Niagara Falls.
Moments before, you can see a white sedan hitting a median and going airborne. Witnesses watched the incident in horror.
There was a car in front of him. He swerved out, went in front of the car, hit the fence, went flying up into the air.
Law enforcement sources tell NBC News the car was going at a very high rate of speed in western New York when it crashed into a checkpoint structure at Rainbow Bridge, caught fire, and exploded. Both people in the car died, and a Customs and Border Protection officer sustained minor injuries.
At this time, there is no indication of a terrorist attack.
As new details emerge, 3 border crossings closed earlier today are now reopened, as the FAA says the Buffalo airport is still blocking international flights on one of the busiest travel days of the year. New York has already been in a heightened threat environment since the attack on Israel last month. Now, as several million people prepare to line New York City streets for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, authorities say to expect an increased security presence.
We don't see any nexus between the incident there and here in New York City. We're going to continue to be out in full force
as police work around the clock to assure a safe holiday.
The U.S. Congress's House Committee on Foreign Affairs will next week scrutinize a draft bill that may spell the closure of the Hong Kong economic and trade offices in the United States. If the bill is passed, these offices must be closed in half a year. Hong Kong currently has 3 economic and trade offices in the U.S. located in Washington, D.C., New York, and San Francisco. Their operations might be terminated in future. That's after the U.S. House Committee on Foreign Affairs announced that the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office Certification Act will be scrutinized next Wednesday. The legislation would require the U.S. president 30 days after enactment to certify whether the economic and trade offices in the U.S. merit the extension of privileges, exemptions, and immunities that they currently maintain. If not, the offices have to be closed within 180 days. Even if the offices are deemed to merit the privileges, the Congress could still strike down the resolution, which would force the U.S. government to revoke the privileges of the Hong Kong offices. The bipartisan draft bill was proposed in February by 2 U.S. lawmakers. They said the Hong Kong ETOs were given diplomatic status as long as Hong Kong remained autonomous under the one country, two systems framework, but that has been obliterated by the Chinese Communist Party's intervention. They added the Hong Kong ETOs have become additional diplomatic outposts of the PRC. In July, the bill was passed by the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. If it's passed by the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, it still has to go through the Congress before it's signed and approved by the U.S. president. The Hong Kong government earlier condemned the U.S. for interfering in the SAR's affairs, stressing that the three offices will continue to promote the city's unique strengths fearlessly. Scholar Lau Siu Kai, a consultant to the Chinese Association of Hong Kong and Macau Studies, said the draft bill is likely going to be passed.
The possibility of passage is very high because of the anti-China, anti-Hong Kong atmosphere in the United States.
He said the bill is mainly symbolic and the actual impact on Hong Kong won't be huge. The city's construction sector has been plagued by payment delays and disputes over the years. To resolve the long-running issue, the government has proposed a bill hoping to prevent stalled payments and establish a mechanism to facilitate timely payments. A clarion call for change and more prompt payback of wages in arrears for the hard work of blue-collar workers. On that, the government submitted its latest document on the security of payment legislation for the construction industry to the Legislative Council. It wrote that stakeholders across the supply chain have faced payment problems over the years, from main contractors and subcontractors to engineering consultants and suppliers. The average outstanding payments account for 5 to 12% of company earnings. One key reason, the conditional payment practice. That's when the lower-tier parties only get paid after the upper-tier parties receive the payments. Or when disagreements emerge over the amount of payment or construction period delays, the payment has to be further delayed because the disputes have to be settled through arbitration or court proceedings. To prevent that, the government proposes to ban such clauses of conditional payment in contracts. It suggests companies should respond to payment requests within 30 days, and payment should be settled within 60 days. Also proposed an adjudication mechanism to fast-track payment dispute resolution. The party not being paid has the right to suspend or slow their work progress. The bill will encompass private and public construction contracts worth more than $5 million. It's expected to take effect in the second and third quarters of 2025. Welcoming the move, Labour sector lawmaker Chow Siu-chung said that could protect smaller-sized subcontractors from delayed payment by the upstream contractors, hence protecting the frontline construction workers. Hong Kong Construction Association President Eddie Lam said the proposed legislation would help facilitate timely payments, but he hopes the government will prevent the law from being abused as there have been reasonable delays due to substandard works. The government will consult the Legislative Council over the proposed bill next Tuesday. A 44-year-old male construction worker died after he was hit by an excavator while repairing another one at a construction site at Victoria Peak. The incident occurred on Pollock's Path. Authorities received a report at around 11 a.m. about a man suspected to have been hit by a reversing excavator. He suffered leg injuries and was semi-conscious when brought to hospital, but later died after resuscitation efforts failed. The government is planning to put into law advanced medical directives for terminally ill patients who refuse life-sustaining treatment. Some patients' rights groups say they believe the measure would relieve terminally ill patients of more suffering. Timothy Lee reports.
In Hong Kong, a desire to continue life support via methods such as ventilators or cardiopulmonary resuscitation, otherwise known as CPR, is often subject not only to the patient's consent, but also to their relatives. In a move aimed at respecting patients' choice, the government said the measure will help to raise the quality of their end-of-life care. The government will also submit a bill to the Legislative Council on the legislation of advanced medical directives. Under the proposition, those who do not follow the directives or prompt others to disobey could face imprisonment. The ordinance also defined terminally ill cases as patients suffering from deteriorating health conditions, those in a coma, a vegetative state, are unresponsive to treatment, and given a maximum of a few months to live. Such individuals are allowed to refuse further life-sustaining treatment, not including basic medical and palliative care. Terminally ill patients could also refuse CPR, ventilators, or pacemakers if they suffer from a cardiac arrest. The measure is applicable to those aged 18 and above who have the mental capacity to make decisions. Authorities require at least 2 witnesses to be present at the scene when patients make such decisions, with at least one of them being a registered doctor and the other being a non-estate beneficiary. To cancel the instruction, patients may make a physical gesture or indicate via writing. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Patients Voices chairman Lam Chi Yao said he believes the measure could save terminally ill patients from a lot of pain, adding that certain resuscitation efforts can cause trauma. The bill will be gazetted on Friday and submitted to the Legislative Council on the 6th of next month. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A district court judge has ruled that former lawmaker Lam Cheuk-ting and 6 other people involved in the 721 incident in Yuen Long have a case to answer. All 7 defendants earlier pleaded not guilty to having participated in a riot at Yuen Long MTR station on July 21, 2019. Lam will remain in custody while the others have been granted bail. The lawyers say that 7 defendants will testify in court. Lam plans to summon 5 witnesses. One of them has been granted an anonymity order. Another defendant, 37-year-old Jason Chan Wing-hei, will also call 1 witness to give evidence. The trial has been adjourned until March the 5th next year. Still ahead, the UK Finance Minister announces tax cuts for workers. And innovative technology products to help the elderly. Welcome back. In the UK, Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt attempted to ease the economic burden for workers, including the lowest paid, as he delivered his autumn statement. Generous tax cuts will help millions in a stagnant economy, but the percentage of the country's budget paid for by taxes will rise. The Conservative Party hopes to boost its own fortunes with an election expected next year. David Garrett reports.
Jeremy Hunt leaves number 11 Downing Street on his way to Parliament to present his autumn statement.
Is this the last chance to win an election, Chancellor?
Polls suggest the government trail Labour by at least 20 percentage points. Labour says the stalling economy is broken after 13 years of Conservative rule. Hunt began by outlining his cautious approach since taking the job. He followed a tumultuous period in 2022 when, under short-lived ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss and Finance Minister Kwasi Kwarteng, an estimated £30 billion was lost in unfunded cuts. Now Hunt says he can afford to make life easier.
I'm going to cut the main 12% rate of employee national insurance. If I cut it by 1 percentage point to 11%, that would be an extra £225 in the pockets of the average worker every year. But instead, I'm going to go further and cut the main rate of employee national insurance by 2 percentage points from 12% to 10%.
The hourly minimum wage is going up next year to £11.44 or 111 Hong Kong dollars. Benefits for low-income households and the unemployed are rising too. Pensions will increase from April.
We will increase the full new state pension by 8.5% to £221.20 a week, worth up to £900 more a year. This is one of the largest ever cash increases to the state pension, showing a Conservative government will always back our pensioners.
Hunt is offering incentives for companies that upgrade equipment, saying the time is right after his policies had cut inflation by half. Taxes will contribute to just under 40% of national income, a 70-year high. The UK's fiscal forecasters say the standard of living will remain 3.5% below pre-pandemic levels, but the Chancellor summed it up positively.
An autumn statement for a country that has turned a corner, an autumn statement for growth, which I commend to the House.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak looked pleased with what he heard. The Conservatives hope voters will be convinced too. David Garrett, TVB News.
The 4-day Geron Tech and Innovation Expo Summit opened at Convention and Exhibition Center today. Wong Sang-ai talked to some of the more than 200 exhibitors at the event.
This wheelchair can assist elders with their walking. This is a portable fundus camera which can monitor a person's health by analyzing their retina. The 7th Geron Tech and Innovation Expo Summit showcases about 800 innovative technology products and application solutions from the city and overseas. Choi Hoi-wei, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Council of Social Service, hopes the fair will deepen the general public's understanding of Geron technology.
Very often when we see some kinds of new Geron Tech products or solutions, we don't know that we can buy it or purchase or rent it from the market. We often thought that it's something very scientific. So this expo allows the visitors to really see what is already provided in the market.
Among the exhibitors, some have come as far away as Finland. This kettle-like product is a portable respiratory training device, which is suitable for patients with breathing problems. The organizers said the device acts like a gym for lungs to make them stronger and bigger.
You are not getting breathless so easily, so it's warming up your breathing muscles, and it's easier to go shops and moving in your home or going outside of your home.
Lindbergh said the product will be available on the market before the end of the year. Meanwhile, this is an AI belt for measuring the balance level of elderly people. Gordon Lee, vice president of an AI health algorithm and software technology company, said the device has greatly enhanced the work effectiveness of local healthcare workers. The expo also has an interactive section.
Elderly visitors can take part in some MR games to improve their cognitive skills, including this attention test. Mimosa 9, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.